So I haven't made a video in about 5 months, and I've been really busy over the summer and the fall with a lot of activities and a lot of classes now that we're back in person. So I wanted to cover something that I haven't really talked about on this channel, which is projects I haven't finished. And so I haven't really noticed that this has been an issue since last fall. And so the issue was after the first summer where I was working on a lot of these projects that you've seen on this channel and through my portfolio, is I had a lot of time during COVID to work on these. And so now my issue is I have a lot of ideas and I've started a lot of things. I'm having issues with the last 10% to finish them out. And so I think this is common for a lot of people, and I'm really curious as to why, and I kind of want to talk about that at the end of this video. Specifically, I want to talk about 3 different projects that I started and I got really far into, but I just didn't finish them. I think there's a couple of good reasons for that. The projects I want to talk about today are the self-watering plant, the self-bouncing robot, and the LED strips that are going to go to desk tables that we made. And so each of these projects kind of have a gimmick to them or something that I really wanted to hone in on. And I think the reason why I never finished them was because I hit a roadblock and I either got too busy or distracted. But a lot of these projects, a lot of the main takeaways of planning the project, putting it together, designing a PCB for it or a circuit or some code, all of that was there. Whenever I hit a roadblock at the last 10%, I really struggled to get over it, especially when I was busy with a lot of other stuff going on. And you know, that's perfectly okay. Some ideas aren't going to pan out, but it's really tough when I see them sitting in a box over at the corner by my desk and they're just sitting there. It's even worse because I want to start 10 more projects right now and I just don't have time to even finish the ones that are backlogged for a year. So I kind of want to talk about each of these projects and show them off because there's a lot of cool ideas in there, a lot of cool stuff. I don't know if they're going to get finished. They might each get their own individual video at some point, or maybe I'll just remake them from what I learned. But the first project I want to talk about is the self-bouncing robot. So the self-bouncing robot was something that I wanted to put together to learn more about driving stepper motors with Arduino. And so I got a lot of different Arduino modules kind of based on like what I did last summer before I was too familiar with PCB design. So I think one big pitfall of this project was that I had it all set up on a giant breadboard. If I started this project, let's say right now, I would 100% design a PCB for this and make it a lot more efficient. I think that was problem number 1. It also used 12 AA batteries to power it, and I think that was pretty inefficient too. If I felt more confident using LiPo batteries, I think that would have been a much more efficient route. And I also think I just got too over my head with the size of the robot because I saw a lot of videos on it, and I saw some videos where the robots were larger, but I think these robots where they self-balance on 2 wheels benefit a lot from being very small. So when they use the PID control in the Arduino code, or however you program it, a lot of these projects use Arduino just to get people into it, it'd be a lot easier to balance with the weight. And so, you know, you're probably looking at the CAD model right now beside me, but I designed the whole thing, I printed the whole thing, I put together the whole circuit. Where I got jammed up on the first part of the project was when I was driving the stepper motors. I couldn't get the wiring or the code figured out, and I feel like it was an issue with my power supply or just not giving them enough current draw. They were 2 NEMA 17 stepper motors, very similar to what I have in my 3D printer actually. So I want to learn more about those and do more with them, but I think applying them to a self-bouncing robot as my first car type project was not very efficient. I think if I did something more like a 4-wheeled thing, similar to even the spider robot, just with wheels, I think that could have been a lot easier and better to implement and learn from. But I still learned a lot from this. I still really enjoyed it. I think the concept is really fun. I think this is something I could go back to and either pick up from what I have based on the CAD model or rework it. One thing I was very happy about was the actual CAD model. It was very basic, but it mounted the wheels in a way that it would have worked if I got it to balance. I think I would have maybe made it like shorter because gravity, as it's going to tip, it's going to start to go faster based on how tall it is. And that's your source as an electrical engineer, so I don't know. But there were a couple pitfalls in this one, and I think out of the 3 projects that I'm going to talk about today, this is the one that was least likely to get finished, and I started it at the very beginning of the year. So when this project started to kind of fall through, I changed focus over to another project, which is the self-watering plant. So for the self-watering plant, I designed a box basically to house all the electronics. Like I said, this was last fall, right when I was starting to learn PCB design through SolarCar. I wasn't very familiar with it, so it was on a breadboard. But unlike my previous project, this only had an Arduino and a little LCD module on the top to display some information about the plant based on the analog moisture sensors I was going to put inside the pot. To basically just read data and then use a little motor with a valve to water it every day. Now my pitfall for this was I've never taken care of a plant in my life, and I didn't want to kill one of my friend's plants, so I didn't do it. And I got really busy, and I have the whole thing printed. I have everything screwed together and put on it. It is literally just a fact of getting the correct data on the analog sensor for the plant. And so I was a little hesitant to do this because I was worried that the analog data coming from the moisture sensor would be not very consistent, and then it would lead to watering the plant, either overwatering it or killing it. Now, I could check if it was not watering at all, because I could easily keep track of something on Arduino or this or that. And I think if I was going to go back on this, I would have just had some kind of fail-safe to check maybe, oh, if it hasn't watered it 1 or 2 times a day, water it at noon and 5 o'clock or something like that. I plan on putting in the windowsill and doing all that, and I have like the tubing and the case for the water. I just never set it up. And I did actually 3D print a part for the moisture sensor to go, like one of those little wooden stakes that you kind of put into plants for like the tags. I just 3D printed a part of that, and then I was going to put the moisture sensor on that and then have that go out to the box. And then the box would just tell you information like the time of day, how many times it's been watered, what the current moisture is. I think I might have had maybe temperature on there, like on the top of the plant, just to see like sunlight. I don't know. That doesn't really make much sense, so it's just an idea. But yeah, you know, this project was like very fully realized. The code was very straightforward. Just if analog value from the moisture sensor dips below this point, add some water, wait a bit. If it goes back up, you're golden. Like I said, I just didn't want to kill a plant, but this is something I could very easily throw together like one day in the summer. And that's another trend you'll see in this video. They always push stuff back. You say, oh, I'll have time in the future. I even said that about this video. I've been trying to record this video for about a week, and I keep saying that because of classes or this, but really fun, so now I'm here. But anyways, you'll see that on my third project too. So the third project are basically just a PCB remote control LED strips. So this project is basically funded through Critical Thinkers, one of the clubs I'm in. So my girlfriend, we wanted to get new side tables. And so we went to Menards and we built the side tables, painted them, stained them. They're great. I still use them. They're in the bedroom, like right there. And so I'm a big fan of those. And we bought one of those like mounted power supply blocks that you see in like tables now sometimes, where you can plug directly into it. And one of those plugs is going to be used to power a PCB that I designed with LED strips that would hook into it. I think my fatal flaw with designing the PCB was I never really thought about like connectors. And so I just used pin headers, but for being on a desk like that, I think I needed a more secure connector, kind of like a MegaFit or a MiniFit connector, instead of just like male to female pin headers on the PCB, because they would just pull out really easily with the LED strips. So I think that was one issue. And after doing SolarCar for the last summer and last spring, I looked at that, and that was another thing. I was like, well, maybe I could just redo the PCB, but then I'd have to ask for funding for it again when I had the first board, and that was also one of the reasons I was a little deterred from it, and was kind of thinking, well, we can just kind of wrap the project as is, because it is finished. The LED strips that I controlled, I used a lot of code from the first 3D printed project I did that had the different LED strips, and it was sound sensitive. I reused a lot of that code and experience I learned from that. It was pretty easy to use with an Arduino library. Very, very straightforward, but it was fun to do. So one thing I should have done is change how the buttons worked so they weren't just wired to digital pins, because they would always scan for inputs, and so if they were always scanning for inputs, this would slow down the LEDs a lot. This was a big mistake. This is something I could look into changing in the future. The issue is it would need a different PCB. So I think if I was going to come back and kind of redo this project, I would just really lay out what I want to do on the PCB first and maybe demo the code earlier. And normally that's different because I'm working on a breadboard with these projects, and instead I don't have to do that, because if something's wired wrong, I can just swap it around. So normally I would order stuff early so I had the chance to play with it in the code later. Maybe you should have flipped it around for this project, especially because my the club was paying for it, so I wasn't really biting the bullet there. Either way, the LEDs were still really cool. I think the patterns that I got to work on them were still really interesting. I might have a video of that here. I'm not sure if I recorded any of it before. But the board itself is pretty fun. I'm pretty happy with how the layout went for this, especially since I did it last spring. This was before I did a ton of layout in Solar Car, but I've definitely done more layout experience in Solar Car now, so throwing together these like Arduino boards isn't too bad after you've done a 4-layer board. But yeah, so those are kind of the 3 projects that I've been hoping to get done, but are very much on the back burner. And I'm in a really weird spot now because I want to start new projects and get funding for new things and new ideas, but I don't have a lot of time. This is something that I feel like has been compounding on me through the semester because I kind of got in over my head with how much time I would have versus my clubs, versus school, versus like just personal projects. Is I'm kind of having to pick between them, and that's expected in college. But it still sucks because I really want to make stuff, and I really want to go back to that summer where I had time to make stuff. And I didn't have as much time over the summer for personal projects because I was helping out with Solar Car, and that was a whole different beast. I learned a lot through that. Gonna make a whole video about that. Slated for a co-op at Collins Aerospace in the fall, so I'm hoping I can get a lot of these projects kind of wrapped up, or maybe some new ones kicking up in the fall, and kind of catch up on things that I maybe been pushing back. That's a goal of mine. This video is gonna be proof that I do it. So yeah, and I guess I've already kind of covered like why I think some of these things happen, but I guess in general, like I feel like it's very easy to start planning things and have all these ideas and order things and like try them out. But after I've learned how to do like individual things, like do the CAD model for a project, or learn how to wire it, or use this new sensor or this new Arduino interface, I guess it gets a little stale and it makes me want to hop onto something new. And there's a lot of value in finishing that last 10% because that last 10% has normally been where I've learned everything, and that's where you learn your mistakes through the design process. And I've seen a lot of those mistakes in these projects, but when you put everything together, you start to see the cracks, I guess, in like your circuit design, or maybe how your CAD's laid out, or how it all connects together. So that's something to be aware of. And just dumping the projects, like if you can't finish it, you know, it might just be better to redo it, or take, you know, you can always reuse the parts. Like those Nemo motors on the SelfBouncing Robot. I could make some track bed for that, or I could put them on a 4-wheel car and just make it 2-wheel drive, you know. Those can be repurposed, but it is a little tough to see them like pulled off of old projects that won't ever get a proper demo or a proper video. And so that's tough. But overall, I still learned a lot through making these. I just kind of wanted to show off like the ideas I had for them, and I planned on like saving them for a full video on each of them just to talk about like the whole process of it, but it just looks like I never really got there. So instead, I'm hoping soon to make a video talking about Solar Car at Iowa State and how that's impacted like my projects and what I've learned in electrical engineering and just ECP in general. I'm hoping I can kind of cover that in board design because I've learned a lot of different practical stuff in there, applying what I've learned in my classes and even ahead of my classes in a lot of cases. So hopefully that'll come out soon to kind of supplement the lack of videos, because I still have been up to a lot of stuff and learning a lot. It's just hard to see when you see my video count because it takes a little bit of time to edit the videos, but that's pretty fun too. We'll see how long it takes for me to get this one out, so I to future me editing. Yeah, so that's all I have for now. Thank you everyone who's ever is watching this. If you're me in the future, hello. Finish your projects and drink some water. And if you're someone else, you should probably still drink some water. I've been drinking too much coffee recently. I go get a cappuccino like every other day on campus. Not a good idea. Not good for my wallet either. So if you like to drink too much coffee, you know, have one every once in a while. Drink some water. Other than that, thank you so much. Watch more of my videos. I'm sure to post more. I really love it. Having a lot of fun in college. So bye. Thank you for watching.